Welcome back to Amusing Minds. I'm Ben, this is Rodney, and we're here to talk about some stuff.
Woohoo.
um, so, so this week I thought that we could talk about bad luck and how you get through streaks of bad luck when everything seems to be against you. The universe is just you know giving you a bunch of no's. How do you push through that and figure out how to keep moving forward, or how do you turn no's into yeses, or you know wherever we want to go with this. So I'll
Right.
start with my story. I had a very recent streak of bad luck starting last week. I have a minivan that we load up and take to conventions to sell our wares, and that is the vehicle that we rely on the most. Well, the registration came up and expired, and I took it to the shop to get it inspected, and there was a couple little things wrong with it. The couple of wheel bearings and the catalytic converter had a hole in it, so they needed to replace that. And I thought, oh, we have like a whole week. They're totally going to get it done. Everything's going to be fine. Well, it gets to the week of the convention, and they say, you know what, this catalytic converter, we can't get it out. The bolts just aren't coming loose, and we're going to keep trying, but it's probably not going to happen in the timeline that you needed it. And so our other option was this old pickup truck that we have, and we'd only taken it on short trips. But as far as I knew, it was good to go. It had been inspected recently, and everything was good. Brand new tires, oil change, um, you know, and it ran fine. Everything seemed to be okay. And what we needed to haul was pretty lightweight, maybe 1,000 pounds, maybe. And so I had to go rent a U-Haul trailer, which I didn't want to spend money on, but I did anyway, and load up all our stuff, and we head out to Nebraska. And 2.5 hours into the trip, the engine starts to overheat. So I pull over and look underneath, and it's just pouring coolant out of somewhere. Don't know where. And the coolant is like super expanded in the reservoir. It's definitely super hot. So we wait for that to cool down. I go inside the gas station. I get some extra coolant just in case we lose too much. And once it's cool, we start on the road again, because I didn't really have much of a choice. We needed to get where we needed to go, and we were 2.5 hours from home. And if we at least got to Nebraska, then we have friends there, you know, and stuff. So we continue on, and every 20 or 30 minutes or so, it starts heating up, and we pull over, wait for it to cool down before we get back on the road. And it got to be so late that I had to contact the convention and tell them that we're going to be late and that we had need to set up in the morning instead. And they're like, "Yeah, that's cool. Don't worry about it. Handable car troubles." So we decided to take our time, and about every 30 minutes, we had to pull over and wait for it to cool down before we could try to push forward a little bit more. As soon as the sun was going down, then all of a sudden there was no problems with the cooling system, and the temperature was stable the whole way. So I don't know exactly what was going on, but we were driving in the hottest part of the day. We were driving straight into the sun, and everything outside was hot. So maybe that had something to do with it. We get into Nebraska kind of late at night, and we immediately drop the truck at a Firestone, and I do the key drop, and I write on the thing like, coolant leak, and yada yada. And our friends in Nebraska pick us up and take us to their house to stay for the weekend. And they were even kind enough to let us borrow their truck for the weekend to get our stuff to the con and do the con for the weekend. And I thought, okay, everything's going to be okay now because the truck is going to get fixed and we have transportation. We can work and we can make money, and it's going to be fine. Turns out that the convention moved weekends to the same weekend as Pride in Omaha. And so the crowd for Comic-Con and Pride split right down the middle. And the vendors at Pride were not happy because they weren't making any sales. And the vendors at Comic-Con were also not very happy because there was, it was very light traffic and not making as many sales as they wanted to. And so on Friday, we were doing like 50% of what we had done the year prior. And I made new stuff and kept my prices the same. Everything was strategically made where, I should be making more sales, at least staying on par, and it just wasn't happening. So as we get through the weekend, sales are really slow. It's really depressing, and other vendors start getting really desperate for sales, to the point that other vendors start poaching people from our booth, where somebody will be shopping our booth, looking at a thing and being interested in it, and then another vendor will bark at them from across the aisle like, "Oh, hey, you're wearing that t-shirt that from this show. Come look at this. Come look at this. You'll like this." Like, really, really aggressive. And for anybody that has vended at Comic Cons before, if you haven't, that's kind of a rude thing to do, to other vendors in the room, because we're all very, like, we're all in a line, we're all trying to do the same thing, and it's rude to like pull somebody away from another booth that they're interested in. So it just wasn't great. Firestone calls me on Saturday and they say, "We can't find a coolant leak. It's not leaking anything." And I'm like, "No, I'm pretty sure it was leaking. There was coolant coming. I could put my hand under it. It was like a faucet." And they're like, "Well, we can't replicate your problem. But it sounds like maybe your thermostat was stuck if it was overheating." And I'm like, "Okay, well, can you replace the thermostat and do a back flush on the heater core to make sure nothing's clogged up and that the coolant's going to flow?" And he's like, "Yeah, we'll make sure that coolant is flowing where it's supposed to, and we'll do a pressure test, blah, blah, blah." So by Saturday night, they had it done, and they were like, "It's ready to go." So we picked it up, and I drive it back to my friend's house, and the temperature is stable, but now the air conditioning is not working. And the air conditioning was working just fine before, and now it's just blowing super hot air out of the vents. And if you turn the air conditioner on, then it becomes kind of lukewarm. And I Googled, and it was like, "Oh, there's this little plastic door that separates, hot air from cold air. And if that gets stuck, then it's going to push out both at the same time." And I'm like, "Oh, well, that makes sense. If my engine wasn't working properly and the heater core was all plugged up, then I wouldn't know that, the heat wasn't going to be working." So we're like, "You know what? Not a big deal. We'll drive with the windows down, and it'll be fine for the way home. We don't need air conditioning. It'll be fine. And we're going to drive home at night. So, everything should be cool." Well, we get on the road after the convention, after we discovered that we were down for the weekend, and then out a bunch of money for fixing the thermostat on the truck. It was like $500 to do all that work. And we get on the road, and we're on the road for about for a couple of hours again. And every once in a while, I'm feeling a rumble beneath my feet, which I thought was very weird. And but it wasn't the transmission; like, it was shifting gears just fine. So I'm like, "Huh, you know what? It kind of feels like maybe the timing chain is off or something, because it feels like it's out of sync, like, but it's only doing it every so often." So I'm like, "Well, maybe I can get it home and then diagnose it after that." 3 hours into the trip, we are 1 hour from home. We pull over to a gas station, and there's oil coming out of the bottom, and I'm like, "Oh no, this is not good." Well, okay, we're still going to try and limp it home. I'll get a quart of oil, and just in case, and we'll check it every so often, and just try to limp it home. Drive slow, all that. We were on the road for not very long, and we start seeing an orange glow coming from under the truck at
Oh my
night,
god.
which is not a good sign. And we pull over, and it is on fire. So the bottom of the truck is on fire. It's dripping oil. The oil is on fire. It's dripping fire from the bottom of the truck. So I immediately call Star 55, and I'm like, "Hey, my truck's on fire. It's not a big fire, but you might want to send somebody to come check this out. and we need some help. So they get their fire department on it. By the time the fire department comes out, the fire is gone. It's not on fire anymore. It put itself out. Thankfully, it did
Right.
not spread. It didn't explode. It just put itself out. And they crawled under there and they had their flashlights. They were looking at it. Um, and I had remembered that when we pulled over and stopped, the service engine light came on. And I know that's never a good sign. But they're like, yeah, it could,
What?
you're going to want to get this checked out. And, you know, it, if there was a small fire, it could burn up some of the electronics. So, yeah, you're going to want to get it somewhere. Because it's after hours, I have to call the 800 number to my insurance company, and it's a call center somewhere outside of the U.S. When they said, so it's not drivable and you need a tow, and I said, yeah, it's not drivable. Why is it not drivable? Well, it started leaking oil and something happened and there was a small fire, but the fire's out now. And she goes, oh, there was a fire? Well, technically, yes. Oh, well, then nothing's covered. And I was like, well, that's an odd thing to say. What do you mean? Well, you're going to have to pay out of pocket for a tow if there was a fire. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, and she's like, well, we can still call you a service to come and do it, but you'll have to pay for it. And I'm like, well, at this point, why would I wait for you to figure out who you're going to call when I can just call somebody myself? So you
Right.
know what? Yeah, fine. I'll pay it out of pocket, and then I'm just going to take the bill to the insurance company and talk to them in person. Um, the state trooper that was there got on his radio, called a tow truck immediately. They were there in like 30 minutes. It was kind of awesome that they got there that fast. But by this time, it was like 1 in the morning. And we knew we could tow it as far as Macon, Missouri, which was about 15 minutes down the road to a service center where we could get it looked at. But it's 1 in the morning. Like we still need to try and get home, and we're an hour from home. So we ended up waking up one of our friends, and she was very very kind to come and get us. By the time she got there, and we had the truck dropped off, and she came and got us, it was like 3 in the morning. And by the time we got home, it was 4 in the morning, and it was just bad. Um, but I was hopeful that the truck was still fixable in some way. Next morning, I get a call from the service center, and he says, I'm sorry to tell you this, but your engine has seized. Like, basically, it just bit the dust. The engine blew
Right.
up. It is not fixable. It is a replace the engine kind of repair. And it being an old truck, it's not worth much except for the 4 grand worth of work that I had put into it, trying to keep it up and going for the last month or so. Um, and so I've spent the last few days just trying to figure out how am I going to go get it, where am I going to put it, how am I going to deal with this thing, because a junkyard will probably pay like $200 for it, maybe, for them to go
Yeah.
get it. Um, and and that's not the end of the story. That's just the beginning of my week. Finding out this truck is basically dead, and that this is a common problem with these particular engines at high mileage. Then the next morning, which is yesterday now, the next morning I get an email from Etsy saying that more than one of my listings violates someone's copyright, and they've removed those listings. And because it happened more than once, they are taking away my star seller badge, and I am permanently banned from ever being able to earn a star seller badge again. And it's because I made some products based on Lord of the Rings, inspired by, and I put together the graphics myself. I didn't rip anything from them, but Warner Brothers owns Lord of the Rings now, and they are super aggressive at going after copyright infringements. And apparently, they went after everybody on Etsy. Anybody on Etsy that has anything related to Lord of the Rings has received a strike. All those listings are gone. If you see anything on there, it's probably going to be gone soon. Or people are trying to figure out how to re-upload it, and change the names of things. But even mine, which I changed the names of a bunch of those products to try and avoid that, they still found it. Um, they still put a cease and desist on it, and And now I have all those products that I used to make are just gone. And whatever your opinion is on fan art or copyright infringement and that stuff, like this is just how I was trying to scrape together a living. And yeah, it was based on fandoms that already exist. But does anybody out there know how hard it is to be a, a really good seller of like leather goods that has nothing on it and has no theme to it and it's just a piece of plain leather wallet? Like, do you know how many makers out there already do that? It's so hard to stand out. That's a tangent, but
So
anyway.
hold on real quick. Yeah. I don't want you to go off a tangent. Two things though. One, is this a bad time to
Yeah.
invite you to the Lord of the Rings extended version? They're doing movie releases. Because in August, every weekend, there's a Lord of the, and I was totally gonna invite you to it before I found out about like, dude, extended
No,
versions
I
in
still want to
theaters
go. I
again.
still love it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I
Sorry.
still I still love it. I
Uh,
still love Lord of
yeah.
the Rings. I can't, like, the
No,
stuff that I was
yeah.
making based on it. Yeah,
It
I just
sucks,
can't do
dude.
that anymore. But no, I
For
yeah,
any
hell
random
yeah,
audience member,
invite me to that.
any random audience member that for whatever reason doesn't know, Ben's whole income is Etsy. That's his entire like thing. That's how he makes his money. So that really
Yeah,
sucks. Um,
I
but
don't have a day
also
job. Etsy is my day job.
that is your day job, yeah. Also though, also something I was like, I'm sitting here listening. I'm like, oh shit. I'm wondering since they're doing this release where they're showing all the movies extended versions in theaters in August, and then this where they like go through Etsy and their banner. I'm wondering if we're gonna get some kind of new Lord of the Rings announcement soon.
Well, there already
Like
was. The
May.
Hunt for Gollum is coming out, and because
Hmm,
New Line Cinema is owned by Warner Brothers now, they've got a piece of that
I didn't
pie,
see that.
and they're probably gearing up to develop merchandise for the new movie and stuff. And the thing was,
Wow.
most of the listings that were disappearing were ones that have references to the map of Middle Earth. So they must be gearing up to make a bunch of merch, like official merch with the map on it. And for years and years, it didn't seem like anybody cared if there was fan art of the map, if people made stuff based on the map. Like, it was everywhere. And so me as a individual maker, I felt very safe, like putting the map that I
Yeah.
drew and developed, and paid for the license of the font. By the way, I paid for the font that I used all over this map, that I drew. But yeah, that's the thing that's been disappearing a lot. Is anything that has the map, and because I developed this this version of the map, I used it on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so this was this big string of bad luck that has happened, and it felt like it just wasn't going to stop. And there was a point where I felt incredibly hopeless, that I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a single vehicle that was drivable. So even if I finished my Etsy orders, how do I get them to the post office? Can I get up early enough to stop the mail lady and like beg her to take them with her? And if I schedule online for a pickup, is that going to happen soon enough to get my packages out when they need to be out, so things aren't becoming late? Um, what am I going to do about my store? How do I replace this huge chunk of high fantasy product, and try to make something where I can make something that's unique, but like is sort of wink wink nudge nudge. If you're into Lord of the Rings, you'll be into this kind of product, instead of just, hey, here's the map of Middle Earth. Like, I can't do that. So I felt so hopeless, and there was a good amount of time where I just sat and just had to like do nothing, because I didn't think that there was anything I could do. And it was really, really hard to figure out, how am I going to move forward, and what am I going to do, and how am I going to continue to provide for ourselves with an income? Like, am I going to go have to get a job at Dollar General in the tiny town that we live in, and try to scrape ends make ends meet with that? Like, it was a lot, man.
Yeah. It. I'm gonna go on like so. It's funny because that I say funny. It's dealing with. overwhelming like weight and just bad shit is, I would say, arguably like one of the hardest things that, at least from my point of view, because I can't speak for anyone else, but a lot of men that I have known, this like what you're talking about is arguably, I think, one of men's biggest problems. When we feel like we can't get a thing, like when we can't provide our portion or our thing, it really freaking sucks. And and this is something like, I don't know, I'm gonna go down a whole different tangent, but just as people, these kind of things can push people really hard into like depression. And the challenge in it is like sometimes everything can seem so hopeless, and it's very hard to see your way out. And while while I know you enough that I think that you get through it, I'm kind of going to talk to our audience or just people in a second more so. But like there's two parts of this. One, the more silly side of it, and I said this to Ben earlier, whenever there's bad stuff, it always comes in threes. So you just got to count, man. You just got to count it when you start to notice that everything's just going freaking sideways. And I'm convinced this is real and true. I'm being kind of silly, but I'm convinced it's real and true. If you're having a bad thing and bad things are happening, you start counting and count them. If an event happens and it's something negative, that counts as one. And then if something else happens that's not related, that's part two. And then something else is part three. After that third thing happens, you're in the clear. Universally, I'm saying this to be true. And until someone proves me wrong, like, unless you're one of those people that just let the universe shit on you, in every other situation, it's always three. And that three things could be something like your truck catches on fire, your freaking Etsy store is ruined, and then you stub your toe. Like, that's three. It counts. Like, and
Okay, well,
once you get past,
our friend David has this same our friend David has the same theory. He talks about things come in threes all the time. I remember my mom telling me things come in threes and then you're good. Like, I'm not a superstitious person, but I have heard this lots of times. So
yeah.
yeah,
So,
continue. Tell us more.
so first of all, if you're really dealing with it, think about this moment right here. It comes in threes, and if nothing else, you'll have something to laugh at. Like, that guy's a fucking idiot. Oh, that guy's an idiot. We got to beep sometimes. Whatever. Yeah, all ages.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
don't care.
so
I
yeah,
don't care about it.
yeah. So there's that. It comes in threes. But then after that, let's get kind of serious real quick. It's stuff sucks sometimes, and if you look at the problems and that's all you can see, you're not allowing yourself to get out of it. And humans are the best, if nothing else. We are the best at adapting and getting ourselves moving forward. So remember that you're human and that you're capable of getting out of the crap. And when you start looking for the positive, or not even the positive, but the way out, that's how you get out. I'm sure some people have heard this before, but there's a thing about skiing. When you're skiing, they tell you, look at the path, don't look at the trees. Because if you look at the trees, you will go into the trees. You will only see trees if you're looking for trees. But if you're only looking for the path, you will only see the path. And a lot of people, when life starts to come hard at you and everything starts to get crazy and everything around you starts to make all this noise and you feel paralyzed, like you can't do anything, stop, take a deep breath, and just look at the path. What is the one thing I can do to get myself out of this here, this moment right now? What's the next step? Where do I go next? And Ben was kind of talking about, like, he kind of got like to the point where he had just had to stop and like, oh shit. Eh, But you'll notice that when he was talking, he didn't completely go negative. He said, oh shit, what am I have to do next? Am I gonna have to get a job in this town? Like, he's looking for solutions. Even though it all sucks, he's already like, okay, cool. How do I solve the problem? And whenever things are negative, You have to remember that. Like, how do you solve the problem? And sometimes your problems can be so big that you have to stop and don't try to solve all the problems. Try to solve the one and the next problem. Don't try to figure out your entire life in a day if everything's going south. Figure out how you're going to do your next thing. What's your next issue? Um, this is funny. I'm
Yeah,
small
start
side
with one
tangent, but
thing.
very it it's this is a tangent, but it's appropriate. And it's kind of financial. It like some people like Dave Ramsey. Some people don't like Dave Ramsey. I've done the Dave Ramsey program in the past, and in the Dave Ramsey program, when I did it, it helped me so much at the time, and it was right. And the one thing that I would say from it that is the most crucial is when you start the program, it first thing you do is you analyze everything. So you look at your budget, you look at everything and how you're spending your money. And in this situation, when you're talking your problems, cool. You got all your problems. Figure out everything that's your problems. And then what it says is do the minimum for all of those things. And then with the little bit you can find or scrounge, you go after the first thing first. And actually, I think his technically is doing your emergency fund, which is $1,000. So it's get yourself one thing first, one positive first, and use that as the baseline, and then start tackling your problems. And in his situation, he's talking money, but I think this is true in life. Start tackling the smallest issue you can address for the moment. So in this situation, instead of it being money, what's the smallest problem that I can tackle? And funny enough, Ben, I think you did it, and it's appropriate. You're like, shit, my truck, this, that, the other, and you tried to go through. But then when you got home and like, and then you had the Etsy thing, you went and you said, okay, shit. Well, okay, what's the first thing? Well, let me take down the first thing I got to do is take down these listings that are fucking me over. Like, it's a big thing, but it's a small thing. It's something you can do. Okay, let me just go clear out this so that it doesn't keep happening to me. So the bad things don't keep coming. How can I prevent the next bad thing? Cool. That's one small thing. All right, now I have this issue. Let me figure out this issue. One step at a time. When everything is chaotic, when everything is going bad, one step at a time, one issue at a time. You can't solve it all. You got to fix one thing and then work it through. And that, man, I tell you, like, I know too many people who have lost the fight of everything's bad. And honestly, and talking to them and knowing them, it's just breathe, take a second, and do one thing at a time. What's that?
Yeah.
What's that phrase? How do you eat an
What's the one?
elephant?
Yeah.
How do you eat an elephant,
I
Ben?
don't know the phrase. One bite at
One
a
bite at a
time.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Find the one thing that you can do and do that. And even that can seem impossible. Even that can seem really, really hard because sometimes the emotions are so much bigger than the thing we just want to do.
Yeah.
And I totally understand. People that get stuck, they get blocked because it just feels so much bigger, in your head. And doing that one thing, it seems so impossible. But if you can break through, if you can breathe, and if you can do that one thing, it's gonna snowball, and you're gonna continue to do one thing, and then you can do one more thing, and then one more thing, and then you can just tackle each thing at a time. For me, the taking down those listings was the first thing I did when the Etsy thing happened. But the first thing that I did when I got the bad news about the truck was I had to organize my thoughts, and I wrote about it. I got all my thoughts onto digital paper, as it were. And I'm a very fortunate person that I have very kind and generous people in my Facebook friends list. And immediately, my friend Mario tried to call me and was asking me about it, and was trying to figure out, how can he help go get that truck and bring it somewhere that I can deal with it, and get it off the parking lot that it's in. And that having a support network was also a really huge thing. Like like for me, taking that moment and having to breathe and trying to figure out what to do next. Yeah, that was all fine, but like when it came to what do I do about the truck, it was I either need to figure out who I can reach out to help me go get it, or I need to start calling junkyards to see what they'll give me for it, because those are the only two things that I could do.
Right.
And so I decided to use my social media to reach out and be like, here's this shitty stuff that happened. Is there anybody that can help me deal with this? Because I don't have an appropriate vehicle to go get it and bring it back home, if that's even an option. And so, even if the one thing you can do is reach out to your support network, um, do that. But if I can give a little bit of unsolicited advice, don't vague post about it. Tell people what's really going on, and tell them what you need help with.
So I want to interrupt for a second because I feel like this needs to be said. If you don't have a support network, if you don't have people, because you said, Ben, and it's really nice that you said it because you acknowledge I'm lucky enough to have people around me that are supportive and a good network. But there are people out there that don't. There are people out there that, for whatever reasons, have put themselves in a situation where they're alone. And if you're alone and you don't have a support network, it's one of those things where, okay, you're alone, you have no one. That's okay. You can still figure this out. And it's simple, and it goes back to that thing of pause, take a second, and do it one piece at a time. Something Ben did touch on, he said it digitally, but like if it's as simple as pulling out a piece of paper and just start writing everything down. Get a piece of paper, draw a line, write the first issue, draw a line, write the second issue. Just put it in front of you in a place that's not just in your head, because if it's in here and you're trying to figure it out and it's all in here, it's a mess. You have to organize to some level, and that can be as simple as writing it down on a piece of paper so that you can see
Or
each
recording
thing.
yourself.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
a
or
video
open up your
recording
voice
could.
recorder on your phone. Yeah, a
Yeah,
video or voice recording on your phone, and talk as if you are talking to someone that's going to listen to you.
yeah.
If you don't have anybody to call, just talk to nobody.
Okay, I'm gonna give
It'll
a
still
crazy.
have.
I'm gonna give a crazy
Yeah.
piece of advice here, and if you're gonna do this, listen to me closely. Do it exactly like this. Okay, you pull out a device, you record all your stuff. Okay, then hopefully you have some level of technology. Take that recording, upload it to ChatGPT, and then you're gonna put this prompt in. Do it almost word for word. Don't do anything else. Put this prompt in. Say, hey, based on this audio recording of what I have said, can you outline a list for me on how to solve, or which, not how to solve, make a list for me of these issues in order of easiest to solve to most difficult, and give me the list so I know which one to go to first. Don't ask it to solve them for you. Ask it to give you the list in order of easiest to hardest.
Yeah,
That
that's
will
good.
get it in an outline so that you can then see it, and then you start to tackle each of those issues. And I would say, depending on your how comfortable you are with AI, you might then go, okay, how do I solve that first issue? What's the next steps that I should take? And then how do I solve the next issue? What's the next steps you should take? Um, and because AI, like, don't use AI as a therapist because it's always going to validate whatever you want it to, but you can use it as an organizational tool to help you do those things. And that's something like, dude, we live in a world where if you're alone, you still have tools that can really help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if your brain is all cloudy and the thoughts are swirling and you don't know what to make sense of it, then yeah, getting it down on paper and having it organized and looking at it in a different way could definitely help you think about it in a different way. And I wanted to say, that I think, and maybe this isn't true for everybody, but I think this will resonate with a lot of people. The reason that I got so freaked out and had to take a moment and breathe after all this bad luck isn't just because it's bad circumstances. It's not just because the things that happened were negative in nature, like it's, the truck braking is stressful and it means that I don't have transportation, which has a whole host of, ripple effects. But if I boil it down to the most essential feeling, it was the feeling of not being in control. These circumstances were taking things out of my control. That I didn't have control over the truck and the maintenance of it, and it just blew itself apart no matter what I did to try and keep it running. Um, the Etsy thing. I did what I could to try and protect these listings and make them where it wasn't so obvious. Like, I'm not trying to represent official merchandise, but it didn't matter. That was out of my control. And these and the sales that I made for the weekend, I did everything that I could to try and make good sales, and I still didn't hit that goal that I needed to hit to offset those expenses and have money to bring enough money to bring home to pay a bunch of bills. And all of that was out of my control. And I needed that minute to breathe and go, okay, what can I control right now? What can I grasp onto that I do have control over, and can feel like I'm making progress? Do one thing because I can control that. And it started with, I'm going to figure out how to transport the truck. And it started with, I'm going to take the rest of the listings down and protect myself. And then it moved into, okay, let's do the more difficult thing. Let's go into, well, what kind of designs can I make that are a subtle nod to Lord of the Rings fans without being overt and violating, someone else's copyright. And 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 going down, like, and talking to a few people, like vines and leaves, and kind of a hobbity theme, or kind of an elvish, thing, but not something that was, direct from one of their visuals, like just something that I make up that can evoke the same feeling out of people that are into Lord of the Rings as fantasy, without saying, here's the map of Middle Earth. It's here. It says Middle Earth right here. Or, oh, this is where the Shire is. Like, it doesn't. Oh, here's a movie quote on a thing. Like, none of that. How can I still evoke those same feelings without relying on that? And I started a list.
Nice.
I started a list of some general ideas that I can work through later, and start doing the really hard part, which is the graphic design, and figuring out what's going to look good. And and then it was at that point that I got into the acceptance of, this is what happened. I am now accepting of it, and I can turn this into a good thing. Removing all of those listings from my shop means that I no longer have the crutch of the recognition that I get through those types of listings. So now I need to work harder to make something that is not only unique, but of the same high quality that I normally produce, so that people will still want to buy from my shop, even if it doesn't have their favorite thing represented on it, but still evokes
Yeah.
those same feelings. So yeah, you do the one thing, it'll snowball into a lot of other things, and the goal is to get towards acceptance. This happened, it fucking sucked, but here's my path forward, and I can turn this bad luck into something good for me.
Yeah.
Need a minute with that?
No, yeah, no, I just letting it sit. Because I mean,
Yeah,
that's
let it
the whole
simmer.
crux of it. There's stuff. There's something I've been thinking about this whole talk, and it's kind of related to that, but it's a little bit outside of the problem things. But it's in the same vein as this. A lot of people, not necessarily like, we're talking about problems and responding to when things go wrong. But there's something that I think we could address in this, as far very close to it. Most of this type of scenario comes from a thing you said of feeling like essentially hopelessness or out of control. Um, and we're talking about the response, but one of the things we can do, and this is something we learn in the military, um, and you learn in a lot of different situations, is while looking back on this, it's all hard. Moving forward, there's also a certain amount of preparation we can do, and the more we can prep for, the more likely when these moments of chaos and hopelessness and powerlessness happen to us, if we prepare, we can be better off. And there's two things. I'm going to do one, and then I'll jump into the other one. The first one is like, this is a small one. It's in regarding to health and fitness. It was one of the best things. Like, there's all kinds of crazy good advice out there, but one of the best things I've heard for people who are like that want to work out and get their routine and start doing that stuff, the hardest part sometimes is just going to the gym or even getting started. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever heard, I don't remember who said it, but they said, look, if you want to start working out, the first week, all you got to do is get out of bed and put on your shoes. Don't you don't have to lift weights, you don't have to do anything else. Set a minimum, a bare minimum of what this task is it, and this is in reference to working out, but it works for a lot of other stuff. But it's this that preparation and that build up. What's the bare minimum you can do? And when you're talking about physical fitness, get out of bed and put on your shoes. You can take off your shoes immediately after and lay back down. But if you want to start working out, you get out of bed, you put on your shoes, you lace them up. And then if you feel like it, you can lay back down, take off your shoes. Or if you want to work out, you work out. And it talks about that. And that's one that's regards to health and fitness, but it does apply to a lot. If you're trying to learn a new skill, or you're trying to move in a direction where you're trying to prepare yourself or do get in the habit of doing something, and sometimes it's harder than others, like as far as like money and things like that, like sometimes budgets are so tight that you cannot save. It's not. But at the same rate, if you go out to eat ever, you can save money. If if you buy uh cool like collectible stuff, you can save money. And those things, like, what you can do with that is, instead of trying to make yourself like force yourself, I'm going to say $50 a month every month. Like, don't go that far. Do start really small. Instead of I would even say, like, instead of even trying to save money, the first thing I would do, if like money's a thing and it's a challenge for you, and I'm not talking to you, Ben, I'm talking to our audience, but in a general sense, is start with cash. Like, if you use a debit card and you have a problem with money, you can do your direct deposit, but then other than your bills, take all your money out in cash and make sure you use cash only to buy things. Spending cash money changes the way you perceive money. That's how I would tell anybody to start.
Oh, yeah.
Just use cash. Like, you don't have to save, but just use cash, because it's going to give you better optics on what you're spending your money on. And then the next thing I would say, once you start using cash and you're used to that, then I would say start keeping your receipts, or take a penny and put it in a jar every time you spend money. The
Yeah.
putting things in
Yeah.
front of you, these small things, like small things like that, start making you more attentive of what you're doing. And being attentive of what you're doing, and that's going back to that Dave Ramsey stuff, paying attention to your money will help you with your money. When you're talking about, like, so you got your health, your physical health, small steps, it's going to make you healthier. Money, small things, it's going to make you more apparent. Food, dieting. Don't I hate diets, I really do. But if you just start making a food journal every time you eat something, the amount that helps, just being present in that, it helps so much. Now, this is all, I kind of all condense this into one thing, but then I want to talk about another thing, and it's planning for the future. Once you've gotten to the point where you're starting to be able to form habits, and you're able to kind of treat yourself the way you would want someone to treat their best friend or someone they care about. Um, which is another side thing I've heard before. Treat yourself the way you would want your best friend to treat you, or you would want to treat your best friend. But then after that, when you're trying to do things, you have businesses or you're trying to do things. When you plan for as many possibilities as you can, when the inevitable chaos happens, you can then be ready for it. And I say this because I literally was talking to someone like yesterday. They wanted to do food. They want to do this food thing. And I'm like, cool, that's a great idea. I think it's a good idea. They're great at food. But I go, cool. What's your plan though for like when things go wrong? So in this situation, if you're doing food, what happens if you're prepping all these meals and your oven catches fire or all the food burns? Because will that happen in most cases? No. But what if it does? And this is a dangerous line to make, and I would say get to a point where you're more resilient before you start thinking this way, because this is the challenge. I don't want you to spiral into the negative, but what I do want people to do is think about the possibilities of the negative before they happen and prep for those outcomes. Just have a solution in the bag. And sometimes you can't prep for everything. You don't know that your truck and your van are both going to blow up and go out. You can't prep for that. That's your backup failed after your backup failed. Okay, sometimes life sucks. But what you can do is kind of like, I mean, that's why we have insurance. That's why you have car insurance and stuff. Granted, sometimes your insurance are a piece of shit and they tell you it's on fire and you're fucked. But but like trying to prep for things by thinking about the most possible negatives and then just having a solution off to the side can do so much for you. So when the thing does happen, you have a solution. And that while it won't get rid of all of it, it will help mitigate it to a point where you're like, oh shit, something bad happened. Okay. Let me go through my checklist. What did I do if that happened? Okay, that's like this. Cool. Hey, here's my response. You know? So yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit of, hey, here's, maybe this is helpful because that you don't know, but you can at least like troubleshoot. One more thing. One more thing. And I'm done with my rant. Um, but it's all of this stuff is so on point for like me right now because it's kind of present in my thought. And I listened to I listened to a lot of business talks, and it was so funny recently. This guy was talking, and he was talking about how a lot of startups fail, and a lot of businesses fail because get caught in the cycle of trying to solve all the problems. And the guy was saying, if there's another business like yours, then your problem that you are having, someone else has already solved. And and
Yeah.
that and that is so real. We live in a world where the internet exists. We live in a world where AI exists. If you're trying to do something and you're running into a problem or you're having an issue, you are a Google search away from, I don't know how to do accounting for my muffin Beyblade business. How do I do that accounting? And I would almost bet if you search it, you're going to get an answer on how to start. So when you have problems, somebody's probably already had a similar problem. So just look for it. And that in itself can help you a million times over.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We live in the age of information, so why not use the information to your advantage and find the solutions that are already out there? Because humans have been around for long enough that most of our problems are just the same as somebody else's problem, and
Just a
they already
rescan.
solved it. So just use the same solution. It'd probably work for you.
Done right. Man.
Yeah. So I feel like this is a good time to sort of wrap up what we've been talking about today, and give our audience a chance to ask us some questions. We don't have any questions this week, but if you are an audience member and you see this video, or any of our past videos, leave us a comment with a question, and we might start answering those.
Dude, no, I
But we
mean,
started out this week talking about.
I got a question. Sorry, I got a question
Yeah,
that our
sure.
audience can ask. If you have,
Yeah.
here's a question for the audience. If you have a challenge that you're facing, ask me, like, or how do I phrase this? Tell me what your challenge is that you don't have a solution to. Like, put it in the comments. Say, hey, this is a problem, and I don't see a solution. And if I see that stuff, I'm gonna see a comment, because honestly, if you're kicking and breathing, I don't think there's a problem that can't be solved. Side note, don't put freaking cancer in there, that you have cancer of the brain or some shit, because sorry, I feel bad for you. Thoughts and prayers. That's the best I got. But otherwise, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, continue the wrap
Other
up,
than
Ben.
medical issues, yeah. Medical issues should be solved by doctors, not by podcasters. Uh, um, so to wrap up, we started out this week talking about bad luck, and I had a huge string of bad luck where my truck broke down. I had bad sales for a weekend, and then I got home and discovered that my Etsy store was in danger of being shut down. And the way that I worked through that was to take a moment, take a breath, let myself process, and then find a way forward. Find one thing that I can do, and do that. And since then, things have started to snowball. I can do one thing after one thing after one thing, and now I'm into the harder stuff, but I know where my path is. And like Rodney said earlier, like when you're skiing, focus on the path, don't focus on the trees, and you'll continue to find that path forward. Then Rodney gave us some really good allegory of solving problems, whether it's the gym membership allegory, and working out, or diet, um, and or financial advice, all the way to business advice, and how companies solve problems. So all of these things are things that we can draw from for inspiration on how we solve things for ourselves. And whether you have a support network or not, there are definitely methods that you can employ to get through whatever it is that you're going through.
Yeah. So start small, work on those little problems, and you'll work it out. That's it.
Yeah.
I'll
And
wrap
even if
up since
nobody
you
else
start.
does,
Go ahead.
we believe in you. Whatever you're going through, we believe in you, and we believe that you can get through it. Pretty sure that Rodney is similar to me in the humanist perspective, that we can do stuff ourselves, if you
Look,
apply
here's the thing,
yourself.
guys. Here's the thing, guys. You have to believe in yourself first, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will.
Ooh, look at that.
That's not even from
Rodney
me. One of
dropping
my friends.
bombs.
Look, that's not my quote. One of my friends put that in an old indie game as a joke poster that we made, but that it sticks so true. Believe in
Oh,
yourself,
yeah.
because no one else will. I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm Rodney, and this has been Amusing Minds.
We'll talk to you next time.